Welcome to the New Vegas Medical Clinic. I'm a fully qualified physician and can fix whatever is wrong with you for a reasonable fee. If you've got the caps, I've also got several implants available to enhance your physical attributes.
Hey everyone, before we get into this, I just want to apologize for sounding a little bit off as I'm just getting over something. Now you may ask why I didn't just wait until I sounded better. Well, one of the NPCs in my fever dream told me to stop procrastinating. The rules for augments can be found on page 208 of the Starfinder core rulebook, page 86 of the Starfinder Armory, and page 140 of the Alien Archive 4. Augmentations are a catch-all term for any kind of implant that your character can get. The purpose of installing an augment is to give your character either a stat boost or an additional ability that they otherwise would not be able to have. And while you could potentially replicate these effects through magic or technological items, they can always be lost or stolen. But with augments, you don't have to worry about keeping an eye on the operative who is just playing their character, guys. It can also be really great if you want to play as a character with an innate ability, but you want to avoid homebrew. For example, let's say that you saw my last video on the reptoids and want to play as one, but you feel like the shape-shifting ability that they have as a playable race is utter bullshit. Well, give yourself some advanced morphic skim and wha-bam! You now have a reptoid that can do reptoid shit. The only drawback is that now you won't be able to get any augments that take up the skin system slot. So you might need to miss out on something like dermal plating. But like old Dump Truck says, it's a role-playing game, not a role-playing game. There are 6 different types of augmentations. They are Cybernetics, Biotech, Magitech, Necrografts, Personal Upgrades, and Species Grafts. Cybernetic implants are just what they sound like. If you've heard of sci-fi at all, you probably know what a cybernetic implant is. If not, it's basically putting robot parts or other advanced technology in your body or completely replacing parts of your body with it. Some examples of this would be optical lasers, which lets you shoot lasers out of the replaced eye and also functions as a normal eye. A data jack, which allows you to use a computer, regardless if it has the hardware typically needed to access it. So if the villain's master plan to keep you from looking at his browser history is to take the monitor and keyboard with him, it won't be an issue for you. Or dermal plating, which gives you a damage resistance by implanting hardened synthetic plates under your skin.
One's a subdermal implant that will make you more resistant to damage.
Biotech augmentations are the opposite of cybernetics, because instead of being made of metals and macroplastics, they are made of organic material. These can take the form of implantable organs that either replace or modify your existing organs, symbiotic creatures that just become a part of you, or in some cases are straight-up mutagens and/or other kinds of mysterious oozes. Some examples of biotech augmentations are dragon glands, which allow you to breathe fire, cold, electricity, or acid depending on the type of implant that you buy, regenerative blood, which allows you to gain back some health points during a 10-minute rest,
Oh my.
or restraining spinnerets, which allow you to entangle the bad guys with a spinneret that is implanted in your hand, like some manner of spidered man. Whether this is based off a Miami Heat or an LA Lakers spider is anyone's guess. Magitech Augmentations. These augments don't rely on stupid things like engineering or science. They work off real provable shit like crystals, runes, and essential oils.
Fucking magnets, how do they work? And I don't want to talk to a scientist.
Some examples of Magitech Augmentations are Dispelling Hands, which not only give you a passive buff against magic, but allows you to cast Dispel Magic on something you can touch, or Restless Pineal Glands, which allow you to not only go to bed on time, but allow you to regain any abilities that recharge at the start of each day with only a 2-hour power nap once per day. For some reason this doesn't work on spell slots, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but it is what it is. Necrografts are made from the organs of undead creatures and general necromantic shenanigans. Also, through necromantic shenanigans, you could make any biotech and cybernetic augment as a necrograft at only 90% of the cost, provided you have the right materials. The only downside is that adding any necrograft to you gives you the necrograft subtype, which is just a big fancy term meaning that anything that identifies or detects the undead will say that you are undead, even if you're not. Also, if you're a little short on cash, it's pretty easy to find a bone sage to give you a loan for it. The only catch is that if you die before paying it off, they get your corpse, and you probably have to join the corpse fleet. The main difference between Magitech and Necrografts is that the wizard who made your Necrograft listens to my chem and has Nightmare Before Christmas on a second monitor while playing Vampire the Masquerade. But if you're still interested, some examples of necrografts are squirming entrails, which replaces your digestive tract and allows you to not only eat spoiled food and resist drugs and poison, but you can literally throw up your guts and use them like an extra pair of hands.
It's like 90 degrees.
Moonlight fibers, which allows increased reaction time by assisting neurotransmission between the brain and spine as though you had the spell haste cast on you, and reroll failed reflex saving throws. And lastly, bone blades. This augment consists of sharpened bone being implanted in your arm, which you can extend at will and allows you to Wolverine. It lets you be Wolverine.
Because of these.
Besides being able to call everyone bub, it's the perfect counter for whenever you run into a Vesk who's trying to act tough just because they have bad lady fingernails. Personal upgrades don't follow the same rules as other augments. Rules-wise, they don't take up a system slot on your body, and where they are implanted and what form they take is largely up to how you want to flavor your upgrade. However, your character can only have 3 personal upgrades, and they can't be of the same mark. But you can always bump up a previous personal upgrade to a higher mark by paying the difference in cost. What personal upgrades do is they give you a permanent boost to one of your stats. So the Mark 1 will give you a +2 ability score increase, Mark 2 gives a +4, and a Mark 3 gives a +6. The form and location of a personal upgrade is largely up to the player. The book gives some examples like a magic crystal with the memories of a long dead murder hobo, or putting a symbiote in your body that totally doesn't look like a Uric from Animorphs. But for the one I used on my character, I had it take the form of some Nilbog milk that my goblin mechanic found and gave him a bonus to his strength.
Here's some Nilbog milk. Special milk, high in vitamin content.
And lastly, we have species grafts. These are the newest kind of grafts and are found in the Alien Archive, and specifically focus on giving you the racial traits of other species. The biggest difference mechanic-wise is that if your race already gets that ability, you could get that kind of graft, but it won't do anything. Sadly, this means that a Yasaki can't get a cheek pouches graft and be double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon. To get an augment installed requires the services of a medical professional with ranks in the medicine skill equal to the level of augment you want installed, be it a skilled surgeon from a renowned medical center, a back alley ripper doc, or if you don't have insurance, an orc with a hammer and saw. The cost of implantation is included in the price of the augment, and if you decide to switch out an augment, removal of the old augment is done free of charge. This process takes 1 hour for every item level of the augment. So while you could get a level 1 augment installed on your lunch break, to get a higher level augment you'll need to start dipping into your PTO, which isn't that big of a deal since most characters have the same schedule as your typical tweaker, i.e. get into fights, steal shit, and try to pawn it off. So you may need to keep track of how long an augment will take to install if your current job is time sensitive or if you're running from the law. One thing to keep in mind is that once an augment is attached to somebody, it is permanently synced to them and them only, and can't be used by anyone else. So once removed, an augment is good for spare parts or possibly a light snack. Once you've chosen your augment, you'll need to make sure you have an available system slot. Or if that system already has an augment, you'll need to decide if you want to get rid of the old augment to make way for a new one. Or if that system already has an augment, you'll need to decide if you want to get rid of the old augment to make way for the new one. Each augment takes up a clearly defined system that it's implanted into, and no one system can have more than one augment. FYI, system slot basically just means body part. For example, you could get a hideaway limb, which takes up the arm system, and a polyhand because it takes up the hand system. But you would not be able to get a polyhand and a recoil stabilizer because it takes up both the arm and the hand system. Also, the amount of systems your character has can change based on your character's race. For example, if you're playing a Cathasan, you have 4 arms and 4 hands. So in theory, you could have a restraining spinneret, a shock fist, a force matrix, and a dispelling hand installed into your hands. And on top of that, you could have any combination of hideaway limbs and bone blades installed in each of your arms. But for some of the playable races, it isn't as cut and dry. For example, wouldn't a Jerkty player get 6 leg slots? Would a Cephaloom's X legs look like this? Or like this? In cases like this, it would be up to your GM to make the final ruling. However, this kind of situation is unlikely to happen, but it's food for thought. But tell me what your ruling would be in the comment section down below. Lastly, I want to talk about how your players could get their hands, or other equivalent appendages, on some augments. First off, the most obvious way involves them simply buying them. Depending on where you try and buy certain augmentations, they may be harder or easier to get. This could be because where you are doesn't have anyone skilled enough to install the augment, or because of certain cultural taboos. For example, getting a Necrograft might be harder to get if you're not on EOX because of certain legal and moral reasons.
It's people.
Necrografts
Is made out of people.
So if your party is on Absalom Station, they may need to do some legwork during their downtime to find someone who is willing and able to implant some bone blades into them.
What, you think just because I'm undead means I'm willing to give you a necrograft? Wow. You know, it's 317 age and you can't just assume that. Oh, I'm just shaking your chain, smooth skin. Let's get you spooky.
Or maybe if you're on some homebrew world that just had an AI rebellion, it might be harder to find someone willing to implant cybernetics.
Science and technology were outlawed millions of years ago.
Or if you're the type of DM who is okay with players just exchanging credits for implants, then you could just have them walk into Dr. Nick's surgical center.
Call 1-600-DOCTORB!
Another way your party could get their hands on some augments is as a quest reward. For example, they could be given some Mark III regenerative blood augments for helping a prominent biotechnician clear out the grotesque experiments that escaped into the dark corners of his labyrinthian laboratory. Or maybe a witch gives everyone in the party a personal upgrade by allowing them to tap into the power of her stone altar.
Oh Lord, the magic rock of Stonehenge, come and protect your children!
Sadly, there aren't any rules for what to do if your players find some unused augments lying around. I don't know why your players would come across random unimplanted augments, but maybe they're breaking into a doctor's office trying to find some sweet hair medical supplies, and instead of medical supplies, they find some unimplanted augments. Or maybe they're exploring the old abandoned augment factory on the outskirts of town and happen upon some unused products. Personally, I would say that they can get it implanted by a party member if they have a good enough medical skill, or if they go to a professional, they could get it implanted for 10% of the augment's cost. Well everyone, that's going to wrap up this episode on augments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. If you want to see more, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also in the comments down below, tell me if this video convinced you to use augments in your game, or if you already use them, tell me what your favorite augment is. Or, if you hated this video and hate me and want to tell me how I'm not built different, do so in the comments down below.